Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table. Hello and welcome. I'm creating more birthday cards in this video. I'm going to be painting with the new Gansai Tambi Gem colors. They're watercolors that show up really well on dark cardstocks. I'm going to create two panels at the same time, so I am just prepping them with some anti-static powder. I'm brushing it over the whole panel just because I'm not certain where I'm going to be stamping yet. The stamp set I'm using is from Hampton Art. I chose this set for this project because it has a lot of pretty flower stamps. I'm using some Versamark ink, which is a sticky ink. It's going to hold on to the white embossing powder. I'm stamping the largest of the flowers in the corner of my card. Then I'm going to fill in around it with the smaller flowers. I want this large flower image to appear in the front. However, I'm not going to be using masks for it. I'm stamping all of my images, and I'm trying to move quickly because I don't want this ink to dry and lose its stickiness. However, it does give you a little bit of time. So as you can see, I'm overlapping my flower images, and it does look kind of sloppy. But I'm going to fix that here in just a minute, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to speed up my stamping a little bit. I have my sentiment up in the corner, but I'm not going to stamp that yet. I just wanted that for placement. Now I can pour on my white embossing powder. And I'm just gently tapping it off onto my piece of scrap paper. And you can see the overlapping lines here. What I'm going to do to get around that is use a small dry paintbrush. And I'm going to gently brush off the lines that I don't want. You could always heat emboss your first flower and then use a mask over it, and then continue stamping, but I just wanted to give this technique a try. I think it turned out pretty well. When I come in with my paints, it's going to hide the imperfections to some extent. I turn on my heat tool for a good minute before I bring it to the panel. This will help it to melt the powder quickly and keep the paper from warping too much. After the powder has melted, I decide to come in with a few more flowers. I just wanted to fill up the corner of this card panel a little more. Once I finish my heat embossing, I can come in with a clean cloth and brush off that anti-static powder. A lot of the greenery in this set were solid images, so I'm going to use some white pigment powder and stamp out some more greenery around my flowers. They are not going to show up as well as the white embossed images, but I'm going to come in with some polychromos colored pencils and color over this ink. It gives the greenery kind of a softer look, but it turns out really pretty, and it's a lot of fun to do. So you can see that this pigment ink really coats the stamps. That's one of the reasons I love stamping with pigment ink, because you can just really see when you have enough on your stamp. I did let this pigment ink dry on this panel for about an hour. I had something else to do, and so I just let it sit on my desk. I don't think it takes that long to dry, and you could always heat set it. I used my spray bottle just to put some water in each of these paint pans. I stir the paint around a little bit with my brush to activate it, and then I can start painting. And I have to say, I really had a lot of fun painting with these pretty colors. They show up so bright and vivid on this black cardstock. This isn't a watercolor cardstock, so I'm trying not to use too much water, more pigment than water. But I simply love these colors. I used the Gansai Tambi Starry colors last month for one of my Christmas cards. That is a set of different gold colors. And I know they have a set of just regular watercolors as well. I'm going to have to pick that up sometime. I picked this set up from Amazon, and it has a very good price point, so I would highly recommend picking some up for yourself. They're a lot of fun. So usually when you watercolor, you have to be careful of your colors bleeding into each other. But because I heat embossed my images, it provides a little rim around the images, and it kind of contains the watercolor. This enables you just to sit down and do some quick painting. You don't have to wait for sections of your work to dry before continuing on with another color. My card panels are dry now, and I'm pulling out a tube of white watercolor. I'm just using my acrylic block, and I'm diluting that down with some clean water. I'm going to do some color flicking on these panels. I don't do this often enough, but I sure love the look of it. These white droplets really show up well on this black cardstock. It also spattered all over my work area and my computer, which is always just in front of me. So I came in with a wet cloth and wiped everything up right away. It's just easier to clean up while the paint is still wet. Once the paint spatters were dry, I pulled out my little tin box of polychromos colored pencils. As I said before, the polychromos pencils don't show up as brightly or vividly as the watercolor, but it just adds a softness to the project that I really like. I'm not doing any fancy coloring here. I just come in with 2 different colors of colored pencil on each image. I'm using Lawn Fawn's new lacy border dies to cut a border on the edge of this panel. I'm really loving these new Lawn Fawn dies that came out recently. I'm using the second largest of the set of 3. And then I'm just pulling out my small scissors just to poke out the little dots from this lacy edge. You can use a craft pick, whatever you have. They pop out very easily. I have a piece of MFT's black and white stripes paper, and I'm just going to use that on the edge of this card panel. I'm using the grid on my work surface just to kind of measure this. When it's done, this panel will be 5 1/4 by 4. That's just a tad smaller than an A2 size card. I wanted it a little bit smaller so the edges of my card base can show around the sides. Once I have that measured, I can just snip off the excess with a pair of long straight scissors. But before I add it to my card base, I'm going to stamp out the sentiment. And I decide to white heat emboss this sentiment too, so I'm adding a little more anti-static powder. I end up adding just a tad too much, so I kind of tap that off. And this sentiment says, "Wishing you a day filled with happiness." I'm using a little more dry adhesive on the back of this card panel, and then I can go ahead and attach that to my card base, and I chose a pretty pink colored cardstock for my card base. I love how you can see the pink around the edges. It just makes the black cardstock pop even more. Here I realized my measurements were just a little bit off, so I'm just trimming this down a little bit. I'm using some sparkly silver confetti sequins just to add a little more shine to my card. And then I'm going to glue these in place with a little multimedia matte glue. On the second card that I created, I used some Nuvo drops. I applied those right onto the card. I don't know which one I like better. I think they both turned out really cute. Please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also click on the bell if you'd like to be notified when I publish a new video. And don't forget to share this video on your favorite social media. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll be seeing you again soon in my next video. Bye!